notice this in His Holiness's writing, that he always pairs the twin wisdoms of compassion with selflessness. Not just one or the other, but they must be intertwined.
Well, wisdom and compassion are non-dual, finally, of course. But there is a strand in Mahayana Buddhism, exemplified very much by Shantideva's writing. Nagarjuna Shantideva, and His Holiness is the sort of living representative of that, where you, before you've even generated that much of a wisdom, you do what is called, you exchange self and other. In other words, instead of you abandon self-cherishing, you see that the only demon in the universe actually is self-cherishing, what they call, or self-preoccupation, sometimes I like to say. And that other cherishing is the root of all enlightenment and all everything, you know. And you, even before you're sort of really able, you just replace them. And Shantideva is the most radical one. He has this, I use it with my students in classes, even though we're not studying Buddhism in an academic class, you're studying about it. But to get them to understand the Buddhist, I always use this verse, and I have a challenge, which is Shantideva's famous verse. It says, all suffering in this world comes from wishing your own happiness. And all happiness in this world comes from wishing the happiness of others. And I say, see if you can defeat that argument or that statement. And then, of course, I get all kinds of things, you know. And, of course, in an undergraduate class, it eventually gets down to sex, you know. then they say, I get there by wishing my own happiness, and then I recommend them to a sex therapist.
Compassion would seem to be the most natural of human impulses because we were meant to live together, and yet there's so much resistance. Why do we resist compassion? Is it fear? Fear of the other?
Well, I often, when I'm talking about compassion, I often see in the eyes of my audience, when I'm allowed to look at them, a kind of mutinous look. You know, they know they're supposed to be compassionate, but they don't really want to be, because it's hard. The golden rule, for example, don't do to others what you would not like them to do to you. That's the essence of a lot of religion, because you have to look into your own heart, find what gives you pain, and then refrain under any circumstance from inflicting that pain on anybody else. And that's hard. People often want to be right rather than compassionate. And it means you have to put yourself to one side. And that people often use religion to make them more so.
Oh, yes.
More me. And instead of, and how am I getting on? One of the problems with my convent was that we were so endlessly preoccupied with our own performance that we were obsessed and trapped in the ego that we were supposed to transcend. So we were stuck in a kind of sterile prism of self-dissatisfaction, instead of letting it go and getting beyond. And concentration on the other takes you out of yourself. It's ecstasis, as the Greeks say, stepping outside the self, which isn't a glorious sort of trance or anything, but gradually you become looser. I'm still very self-obsessed, of course. I mean, I'm not there yet, but I have little glimmers of it, especially in my study.